Hello, everyone. My name is Andy Trapp. I'm a professor of operations and industrial engineering. If you're wondering what that has to do with arts and sciences. I have a collaborative appointment in the mathematical sciences and data science program here at WPI. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about my research on developing data-informed holding and judicial capacity levels for asylum seekers at the southern border. This is NSF-funded research, just kicked off recently. And I'm just going to throw up a few headlines here. These were supposed to pop up one by one, but grateful that they're here and not showing in some other language or something. So I'll just let you kind of process those for a minute. I didn't try to put anything provocative up here necessarily. These are just headlines from all over. Wall Street Journal, New York Times. No wonder, I mean, you've seen these. You had to be hiding under a rock or behind a wall or something to not see these. Fox News is here as well. So it's Wall Street Journal, as I mentioned. It's all across the board, right? So you can imagine there's a lot of things going on here at the southern border. There's an asylum process as people come through Mexico, really, to the southern border. There's an affirmative and a defensive asylum process that happens. The ones that we're looking at are defensive in nature, so they're coming to the border and saying, I want to apply for asylum, I'm seeking asylum. Now, originally, they had come to this border to say, to border crossing. They wanted to find out, could I get through? But there's a policy called metering now where that's kind of only a few people could come through the border, so that's led people to go to illegally cross, so illegal crossings, right? And so as this happens, there's just a lot of things happening in the last 6 months or 8 months or so even, last year for sure. And so we have this kind of wall, this idea of a wall happening, people coming, surges happening, caravans you see buses, people being bussed up. And so there's a bit of a crisis going on at the southern border, right? So just with all that as a backdrop, the current process has some challenges that we can look at. No matter if people are coming or if they're now remaining in Mexico or if there's different policies happening, some questions exist. What are the proper capacities for detaining asylum seekers? What are proper capacities? And also judicial capacities. How many judges do we need to be processing these asylum claims? How many? So what's proper, what's appropriate, right? So this is what we're looking at, and this is what we're proposing. Rather than prescribing, say, this is the right capacity, we're taking a slightly different approach, and we're saying for any level of service, so proposing to make a tool that decision makers in the government, probably Department of Homeland Security or Customs and Border Patrol, can use to process, if they want to process X% of asylum seekers within Y amount of time, right? 90% within 6 months, whatever that is. So they could choose those levels. Then we would recommend data-informed optimal levels of holding and judicial capacity. Whatever the flows are, they were spiking at one point earlier in the spring, late in the spring actually. Now there's some different policies keep changing, right? So how do we go about this? I mean, lots of different policies are coming in place, laws are on the books, and judges are, interacting, doing various things. So what we're looking at here, in light of all those, is so can we use data to project how many people are coming? It's tricky right now, right? I mean, there's not a lot to easily project on with the different policies in place. But at the south of the border, that's what we're looking at, predicting migration flows. North of the border, we're looking at queuing models. So how do we process asylum cases efficiently, whatever efficiently is, right? But so what's the appropriate amount of, again, judicial capacity? And so the idea here is to make a tool for decision makers in government. We don't want to recommend necessarily, we want to make a tool that will recommend based on their input, what they feel is important, okay? So this past summer, and this is just kind of my concluding slide. This past summer, we've analyzed available data, which isn't much. There's kind of aggregate summary data from Customs and Border Patrol. Jerry Demas, a data science PhD student, want to give her a shout out. She did a lot of work in exploring this data. More data is needed. We're in touch with Department of Homeland Security folks. You can imagine there's some kind of defensiveness, what do you want to do with this data and things, so we're exploring those options. There's also an MQP with 5 fairly talented students that are spearheading the kind of the queuing side. So given this initial input, this prediction of flows into the US across different sectors, how should we respond, right? What's the holding capacity? How many judges do we need? So they're looking into this right now. And I think down the road, I mentioned here recognition of stakeholders. I think throughout, right, we need to understand who are the stakeholders, not just down the road. But we want to look at also where can we place shelters? Should they be modular in design? Should we be able to build them kind of lightly? Not a tent, right, where it gets very cold there in the wintertime. We'd want to have something that has proper heating and cooling, but can we do this in a way that's not, kind of a permanent old Walmart that's reconverted, but rather can we build modular designs and place them according to where the flows may be happening? That's relevant not only on the southern border, but kind of more broadly, wherever there is migration happening. Thank you.